if they use the word indifference curve analysis, please just don't think they're talking about indifference curve. Indifference curve and budget line works together. Individually, indifference curve is not going to help you with anything. Okay, it's not going to help you derive the demand curve. You have to have the budget line and the constraint to actually formulate the idea. In our previous chapter, marginal utility theory, uh, our main agenda was okay, for every individual customer, for every product, how much utility he's deriving. And based on that, he was deciding whether to consume more or less of something. Over here, that's not our discussion anymore. This time, our discussion is going to be between the two goods. It doesn't have a discussion on one good, it has a discussion on two goods. It does not have a discussion on three goods even. Equi-marginal principle had a discussion of three, but did not include income anywhere. ठीक है? Indifference curve is about two goods, and कंज्यूमर इज नॉट थिंकिंग अबाउट कि किस प्रोडक्ट में मुझे कितनी यूटिलिटी आ रही है, बट एक बंडल में मुझे कितनी यूटिलिटी मिल रही है. If I use a combination of X and Y, how much that combination will give me satisfaction wise. It's not about individual anymore, it's about bundles. And then of that bundles, he will learn to rank them in the preference. Which bundle is going to give me the highest utility, which bundle is going to give me the lowest utility, and which bundle I will be indifferent in. And obviously with that comes income and price impact on the budget or on the entire analysis. So for that, the first thing we're going to start off with is a single indifference curve. What is a single indifference curve? Well, this is your definition for it. That a single indifference curve shows various combinations of good X and good Y, which gives you the equal satisfaction. This is a very major point that you have to add. So, for example, you have been given a table below with these certain combinations, A to F. My first combination is 30 clothing and 5, and it gives me a total utility of, let's say, 100.
Total utility सब में same ही रहेगी ना?
Yeah. So I've come up with this number. This is my hypothetical number. You could have done it 80, 79, anything that you want. What about bundle number 2? Well, if I go for bundle number 2, which is combination B, I'm saying even if you give me this, I'm indifferent, my total utility will remain the same. If I go for combination number C, which is 13 and 15, the total utility remains the same in this case as well. If I go for option number D, or if I go for option number...
Sir?
Yeah.
Are you plotting these midway?
Nope. Utility ka I am plotting them on the whole numbers, and that's my point F. And if I plot them, this is how my indifference curve looks like. I'll call it IC0, with the total utility driven is 100. That's my personal marking over there, just to show that how much utility this is deriving. It's deriving 100 utils. Any combination I pick up is going to give me the same utility. That means I am indifferent to any combination mentioned over here. Okay? So the thing is, we have to find out that in order to have one more of one thing, how much of the other do I give up? A lot like opportunity cost, but slightly different in this context. So for example, when I go from combination A to combination B, I lose something in order to gain something. So I go this way, I give up about 12 of clothing in order to have 5 of food. Right. So, in order to have 5 more of food, you have to give up about 12 of clothing. This is your marginal rate of substitution. This is even the slope of the curve. And then after that, from point B to point C, if you go, you will give up about 5 of this in order to gain 5 of that. Then you'll have to give up 3 of this in order to have 5 of that. Then you will have to give up 2 of this in order to have 5 of that, and then you'll have to give up 1 in order to have 5 of that. The thing is, the more food you are consuming, it is diminishing. The marginal rate of substitution is diminishing. Initially, you had lots of clothing, so you had a lot more to give, but then your clothing became lesser in numbers. It became more dearer to you, so you were willing to give up less of that. So, on that note, basically, we work out the marginal rate of substitution, which is the gradient. Since it's a curve, it will have a different gradient on each point. So we'll do it for the ranges from A to B, and then from B to C, and then C to D, D to E, and E to F. So for the first, I gave up about 12 clothing in order to have 5 of this. My marginal rate of substitution becomes minus 12 over 5, which is minus 2.4. That means for every one food, I give up 2.4 of clothing. This is just for A to B ka range. After that, I give up 5 in order to have 5 of this, minus 1. Then I give up 3 in order to have 5 of this,
plus
0.6. Minus 2. And then I'm just looking at these from the graph. Moving on. So based on this, we got the marginal rate of substitution, which is the gradient or the slope of the curve. Agreed?
Yes, sir.
As a gradient, it's the slope. So normally gradient ka formula is this.
y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x.
And that's what this is. Delta sign means the change. Okay? So y2 minus y1 ki jagah, the change in y over change in x for the points. But in this context, since we have clothing on the y-axis, we'll say change in C over change in F. That's your gradient, and that's one way of looking at it. ठीक हो गया?
Yes, sir.
So the marginal rate of substitution is how much are you willing to give up of the other in order to have more of one, and it diminishes as you are consuming more of something. ठीक हो गया? Now, this is something which I have not done thoroughly, but let me go over. This is what's happening. Please follow. So the graph is showing you pears versus orange. So this indifference curve is telling you that you can have these different combinations of the two goods which will derive you the same utility of say 100. Okay? So if I'm moving from point A to point B, I am gaining one more orange, and for that I have to give up.
6 periods.
Has my total utility changed?
No. No.
No, the total utility remained the same.
Okay.
Can I, in another words, say that the satisfaction of one orange is equals to 6 pairs?
Yes.
Of one orange, it's 6 times greater
Yes.
than of the pair.
Yes.
So if I talk in terms of satisfaction, in terms of utils, I'm saying कि एक orange की जो marginal utility है is equals to 6 times the marginal utility. हाँ? ये change होती रहेगी. Yeah, this will change. This will change. That's why I'm talking about point A to point B only. So in other words, if marginal utility of orange is 6 times of the marginal utility of pear, if I rearrange it, I come up with mu orange over mu pear is equals to 6.
Yes.
So if I was to look at it from the x and the y axis point of view, on the x axis we had orange, on the y axis we had the pear. So basically this is our equation, this is our second equation, the gradient, the marginal rate of substitution ka, which you can even say that mu x over mu y, which in this case was actually equals to 6,
Yes, sir.
x and y axis ke saath. How did we come up with this? Well, we came up with, we just saw that if you gain one more of one product of the other, how much you're giving up. But since your total utility is not changing, तो हमने कहा उसकी और उसकी जो है utility जो है वो
डेल्टा y over डेल्टा x निकालना है, यहाँ पे डेल्टा x over डेल्टा y
come up with two ways to look at the marginal rate of substitution, which is one simple mathematical way of gradients, change in y over change in x, and the other one was in the way that we can even look at it in terms of the utility. As we have a discussion over here, you can read it here and it explains exactly the same idea. Then we are aware of what indifference maps are. Yeah, indifference maps are basically various indifference curve which is giving you various levels of utility. If your indifference curve is on the right hand side, your utility will be greater than 100
Yes.
because the combinations are more superior.
Yes.
But if your indifference curve is closer to the origin,
It's gonna be this.
it's gonna have a lesser utility comparatively. The next point we need to know is क्या दो indifference curve एक दूसरे को intersect हो सकते हैं? We say they can never intersect. Reason being that each indifference curve represents a different total utility. So if they have different total utilities, how can this combination right here gives you the same satisfaction? It's just not possible. Other than that, it's difficult to understand. Like f is more superior than g.
Yes.
Okay, so that means this should give you higher utility. But over here, the same IC2 is more inferior than IC1, so then it is suggesting it should have lower utility. So in short, the two indifference curve can never intersect each other. So the next part is the budget constraint. Obviously, you will have to give me the definition of the budget line or the budget constraint. Budget line identifies combinations of the two goods that the consumer can actually afford with the given budget. Okay?
Not with
So the thing is, what is the price you're paying for the goods and what is the fund available to you helps you figure out the budget line.
Yes.
How do you construct a budget line? Let's take a look at it from our notes. So, how much quantity of Y can you afford and how much quantity of X you can afford? You come up with the extreme points. So, X के लिए you take the budget, you divide it by the price of X, and you get
5.
so this is my
Budget for X.
this is the maximum of X I can consume while consuming 0 of Y.
Sir,
And-
budget line is-
For the next one, 10 divided by the price is $1, so you
10.
can afford about 10 of this. Okay, so that's 5 and that's about 10, and you make a budget line, a straight line. This is your budget line. On this budget line, there are these different points, combinations that you can afford. These are your affordability while using your budget completely. and that's what we want. We don't want consumers to incompletely use their budget.
Complete.
What about this point right here? If you want to
Unattainable.
use this,
Unattainable.
so we say it's not possible, it's unattainable, you have lack of budget, it's unaffordable.
Expensive. Okay.
What about the combinations inside?
Yes, we can. You have
You
to give
can,
up,
it is affordable, but
but not a big part.
budget not used completely. All right, so you could even say like unemployment budget, unemployment, inefficient use of budget.
या सर हम ये कह सकते हैं ये टोटल बजट है और ये जो हमारी बजट लाइन है ये हमारी रियल बजट लाइन है.
Sir, इसमें utility maximization होगी.
You could say that that's your potential and this is what you are actually spending. So budget means what your potential really is.
इस point पे कोई utility maximization हो सकती है.
इस पे
इस point पे inside the curve, like inside.
नहीं. With the indifference curve analysis, you have to be on the budget line using your complete budget. You have to, yeah. That's the main thing. Because with the given budget, we are always looking at hey, what's the highest you can get. Now the thing is कभी एक slope है, एक gradient है, which is basically change in y over change in x.
Change in x upon change in y.
Change in y over change in x. जो इस केस के अंदर I think it's 2 over 1, negative 2 over 1, minus 2 का आ रहा है.
Negative 2 क्यों?
सही है, because it's a downward sloping, it's a negative relationship. The other way of looking at it is through price ratio.
नहीं.
Price ratio is simple. वही 2 का अगर मुझे result चाहिए तो how would I do it?
हम 2
Price of x divided by price of y,
Yes.
and you will get the same budget. ठीक हो गया? So this is another way of looking at it. This is important because it's going to link with our marginal rate of substitution a little further ahead. Are we clear?
Yes.
So this is how you construct it. Now, different changes you have to learn. I'll go really fast with this because we've already done it. All right. So what we have is we're talking about nachos on this axis. We're talking about popcorns on this axis. The maximum affordability, this is the initial. For all cases, this will be our initial budget ka starting point. So my first budget line, 600 divided by 100 gives me a maximum popcorns of how many? 6 of this, na? So if I want to find out quantity of popcorns that I can afford, it's 600 divided by 100.
Yeah.
So I can have 6 of this. The maximum nachos I can have is
600 upon 150.
600 divided by 150, which is about 4. So I can afford 4 of this. And based on this, मैंने एक line बना दी. This is my initial budget line. उसके बाद क्या होता है? They have suggested कि my budget goes up to 1200. कितना percent increase?
6
It's 100% increase. So
pivot outward.
what's going to happen is, as a result, the math will be 1200 divided by 100. You can afford about 12 of these. And then 1200 divided by 150. So I can afford about 8 of these. Basically budget double हो गया तो मेरी purchasing power भी
बढ़ गई.
double हो जानी चाहिए. And so if the budget increases, I see a parallel shift
Outward.
outwards. Okay, as a result of money income going up. The question really is, what happens to my real and nominal? Nominal is monetary. So we have to look at 600 रुपए थे पहले, अब 1200 रुपए हैं. क्या money increase हो गया? I say yeah. So nominal income went up. Then you look at
Real.
the real. Real के लिए you're going to use the area. It's about the purchasing power. So initially you were getting this much area, was possible for you, attainable for you, and now it's this much area.
Yes.
So has the area increased?
Yes, sir. Significant.
We say it has increased. That means my real income has also
Right.
gone up. Moving on. Second case is, what's happening in the second case is, let's take a look. Same popcorns up here, nachos down here, 6 or 4 ki hamari original budget line was already given to us. Now what has happened is, they're saying that the price of both goods have increased by 100%. So 100% means that the prices have gone up
200.
twofolds. So now your affordabilities are 600 divided by 200 gives you
4. Like 3.
600 divided by 300 gives you, and based on this I have my new budget line, which is a parallel shift inwards. Now if the price of both goods go up, naturally your purchasing power is supposed to fall because it's more expensive to buy more. Nominal income is the same because your budget hasn't changed, your money income hasn't changed. Nominal income remains the same, but what about the real? So real का हमने देखना है. Original area was this, but after the changes your new area is this. So obviously the real income fell. The purchasing power has gone down. Please don't make this mistake. It's a common mistake. Income बढ़ने से parallel shift outwards. Prices दोनों की बढ़ने से parallel shift inwards. Affordability will get reduced. Moving on, case number 3. Now what has happened this time is that
Price of one good.
the price of one good has changed. So the first, it's the same. Price of nachos has gone up to 300 while everything else remains the same. So if that is the case, it rose. Okay.
Yes.
So what's going to happen? Your affordability for nachos is going to go down to 2. And the affordability of the other good is not going to change. 600 divided by
3.
no, I've done something wrong.
150.
Yeah, the price of this did not change. So this is the same. This has gone over here. So as a result, I have my new budget line, which is like this. What do we call this?
Parallel pivot in.
It's a pivot shift inwards. If the price would have gone down, it would have pivot shifted outwards. But as far as our nominal and real are concerned, did money income change? It was 600 and it remained 600. So that means nominal income did not change. Your real income,
It changed. Well,
it fell because now you can buy lesser stuff. The area is going down. Excellent.
thank you, sir.
Next is case number 4. This time they are suggesting what has happened is that money income went up. Alright, so this is my first budget line. If money income went up, it doubled. So the first change, if I was to show money income double होने की वजह से, as we've seen earlier also, we have a parallel shift outwards. That's the first thing that happens.
Yes, sir.
Then the price of nachos has gone up also to 300. So we're going to use 1200 and divide it by 300. We come back to level 4.
These are like 412.
And so this is your final budget line. Even if you make this final one and you don't make number 2, it's alright. It's perfectly fine. As far as nominal income goes,
Nominal increased.
nominal income rose because your budget went from 600 to 1200, And your real income, we're going to compare the two lines. Number one, we're going to compare this line, the original one, with our end result, which is this line right here. So what has happened to the area? The overall area has increased. So that means my real income also rose. And that's how you take a look at that. So case number 5, our final case is what is also possible is that the price of popcorn went up
by 50%.
200. That's 100% increase. So 600 divided by 200, that gives you 3 ka marker. And nachos ki price has gone down
50%.
to 75.
ये तो 50 है ना?
So if you do 600 divided by 75, I think you get about 8. Okay. And so as a result, when I draw, this is how my budget line sort of looks like now. So what happened to my nominal income? What happened to my nominal income?
Sir, it stayed the same.
Because the budget, the monetary income did not change. But what happened to the real? Now the confusing part is, एक का price बढ़ा है, एक का गिरा है. So you will rely on the area wala system that we were working with. Original area was this. Okay. And after the price changes happening, my new area is this.
Increased.
So I lost this, but I gained this. Area wise, they are exactly the same. So real income has not changed. If the gain area was bigger than loss area, then you would have said कि ठीक है increase आ रहा है. इसीलिए area बहुत matter करता है. You look at it from the area point of view, not numbers point of view. That this fell by 3 and you gained 8, so quantity wise you're probably buying more. Don't work with that. Work with the areas because that's more relevant. Now finally, what we're going to do is we're going to bring them together. You have an indifference map given here. You have food on this axis. You have clothing on this axis. You have 3 indifference curves given to you, with the highest one giving you a greater utility as compared to the lower ones, which will give you lesser utility in combinations. ठीक हो गया? The thing is, if budget was not a problem, you would have preferred to be on IC2, the highest one. In fact, इससे आगे भी जो होते, you could have gone for those as well. But since there is a budget constraint that has been given to us, so if you have the budget of 16 per week and the price of clothing is $1, the maximum of clothing that you can afford is and that's my marker right here for 16 that you can afford. And $16 is your budget. Price of food is $2, so the maximum you can afford is 8. So since I have my 2 lines, I'll make my budget line meeting the 2 points, right? So this is my budget line, and this helps me with my consumer equilibrium.
Where the IC is tangent.
Right, absolutely. So consumer equilibrium is basically where the budget line is tangent. Keyword is tangent to the highest indifference curve. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And over here we can see it is tangent right over here at point A, where you want to get 4 of this and about 8 of these. However, you have other intersections as well. You have point B pe intersection, you have point C pe intersection. But we don't say B and C are equilibrium because you are using the maximum budget, but you're not tangent to the indifference curve, you're actually crossing through it. And the key thing is it's giving you just 70 utils ki satisfaction while using the whole budget. You want to go for the highest indifference curve. 80 is the highest possible. Anything more than this is unattainable. You don't have the budget for it right now, right? So based on this, right here at point A, what's really happening is that the indifference curves ka slope is meeting the budget line ka slope, isn't it? Indifference curve ka slope was MUX over price of MUX over MUY, while the budget line was PX over PY, and they both intersect at this point A. If I rearrange it, I take this here and take that up there, it becomes MUX over price of X is equals to MUY divided by price of Y. Our equimarginal principle comes into play over here as well. So this is your equilibrium. Equilibrium will change if the budget line changes for any reason. And that's the last thing we're going to do today, that how can you use this idea of equilibrium to construct a demand curve. So let's do that. So I'll work with the first diagram, indifference curve ka. You have quantity of X over here and you have quantity of Y over here. You have a budget line, and budget line की ये जो extreme points हैं ये कैसे आए थे? Y divided by price of Y.
Yes.
Income divided by price of Y.
X divided by price of X.
And income divided by price of X, whatever the price of X is. And the indifference curve के साथ wherever you have an intersection, this is the quantity of X that you are consuming, and this is the quantity of Y that you are getting. ठीक हो गया? This, I hope you understand these parts.
Yes, sir.
How we got that. Now, if I am to construct my demand curve, the case with demand curve is for good X, if I'm creating it, this is what you're going to have for your X's. Price of X and quantity of X. Now, the price was PX0. Let me just do a rough marking. It's PX0. What is the quantity that you are buying when the price is PX0? So the indifference curve is telling us that the quantity of X when the price of X is 0 is QX0. This right here. So I'm just going to bring that quantity right here. QX0 is what you're buying when the price is. That's my first point that has been driven. Okay, we clear how we've got this slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the next thing we want to do is let's drop the price of X to PX1. So when the price goes down, we've learned you're going to have a pivot movement, budget divided by PX1. You can afford more of X, and this will help me go on to a higher indifference curve and a new equilibrium with QX1 probably. Okay? And over here my quantity of Y is also going to change, but for construction of my demand for X, that's irrelevant right now. The same thing, since we've said price is falling down, I'll just put a marker here, PX1 pe jab aaya. What's the quantity that I'm able to afford when it's PX1? It's my second point here, QX1 is what I'm buying और वो PX1 के ऊपर है. That helps me with my second point. Now since I have my 2 points, I can just simply connect them, and this shows the demand curve for X.